guys, welcome back.
Welcome back, saucers.
Welcome back, saucers. That was great.
I hope you are I hope everyone is alive and well and adjusted and meditating and having difficult conversations still and keeping yourself informed, but still taking care of your mental health and listening to our podcast.
Amen. And still religiously listening to SOS, please.
Priorities.
So I'm excited for this one. We have today, our guest is Ariel Michelle, and she is an LA-based model, actress, and artist. She does it all. She's like a creative whirlpool.
Yep.
And we both of us worked with her. That's how we met her. And
she's dope.
She's never not like, she can draw. She's incredible. Like, I've seen her paintings, her drawings. She's never not just like doodling something with all of her pens and colored pencils out, like even at work. And like, she just has her photos. I mean, she just is a creative being through and through. And she has quite an Instagram following. So our topic, is going to be loosely around social media influencing. She's definitely on the influencer level with her level of followers and influence. So, if you guys want to check her out, you can.
Yeah, and she's a beautiful mind too. So I'm just really excited for you guys to hear this and for us to talk with her again. And I mean, we always wanted to talk about social media, and I think now it's like a really weird time, like in a pandemic, and also social media is changing with how we are representing different cultures and skin types and body types and all this stuff, and making everything okay. You don't have to be this one type to be to influence, not to be corny with it, but
and I want to pick her brain about like actually being a woman of color and in this last month, like seeing brands scramble to prove how diverse they are, as opposed to those who are inherently have those beliefs, and what she has seen, because I know she's been in a lot of campaigns, and I feel like there's a lot of brands now who are like pulling up campaigns they did once a year ago because there was like a black girl in it or something. And I'm just really interested to pick her brain on all of that. On Instagram, her Instagram is at Arie.Michelle, Michele. So you guys should go check her out while you're listening. Scroll through her photos.
Yep. So without further ado, enjoy.
All right. Please welcome Ariel to the pod. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Oh my God, we miss your face so much.
I know. Miss just faces in general,
Honestly, for real.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for being here and talking to us. I mean, I want to jump right into it. Like, you're a super talented model, actress, artist. We're obsessed with you. I mean, as a person, but also like I am obsessed with your Instagram, like your stories, everything. And we're interested in just like how you grew up basically, and like how you became an artist, and like your journey.
One thing that I really appreciate about your Instagram, because we're talking like social media influencing, obviously, but I remember, I think it was like a couple years ago, but I saw a caption that you put on a photo that was like, I used to just post my photos from my shoots and not really say much. And you were like, but I just realized like I'm over that. I want every caption that I have to be thoughtful and to say something meaningful. And every single one of yours does. And you have this way of being vulnerable and open and very real. And there's so much strength in that, because I think what's so refreshing about your feed and the things that you open up about in your stories and your captions and everything and your photos, it's just like, you're not over curated in the sense that I mean, it is because it's intentional, but it's not like over curated in the fact that where you're like, okay, but all these photos are like super photoshopped and it's not these cheesy, like you're saying real shit and you open up about like, look, guys, I had a rough day and this, do you guys ever think about this? It's very like a community that you build. And a lot of influencers, don't go that deep with it, and a lot do, and you're one that does. And so I have so much respect for like the community that you build and also the vulnerability that you have without being obnoxiously like, look at every part of my life. It's like you walk the line and you have a lot of people following you. I'm sure it's for that reason too. So I mean, and then I want to jump into your childhood, but people who haven't followed you yet, or I want them to know like the context of what your page actually is. Cause it is your photos and your art, but it's like, you get a sense for who you are and what you stand for. And the human experience is like what you highlight mainly. It's not all shiny fucking ponies. It's like life, sometimes it sucks and being a creative is hard. And yeah, it's not a downer page either. It's just real.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Of course.
So yeah, you're creative, like your childhood, your dreams for your life as a child. Has it always been in the creative realm?
Yeah. So as a kid, I for whatever reason, I just knew I'm like, and anything that I did was gonna have to be creative. I had absolutely no interest in academics.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because I wasn't good at it. I knew I'm smart in the sense of how I guess our school structure has been made
Yeah.
to be. So I understood context clues. I was good at test
Yeah.
taking. That doesn't mean that I was great at retaining all the information. It was just like I know the process of elimination. I know all of
Yeah.
these things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I know if I had a genuine interest in like math or science or history, which I'm now starting to have more of an interest in history just due to
Yeah.
social issues. But
Okay.
if I had more of a genuine interest in school, I know I would have excelled even more so. But um, I knew instinctively that you know anything creative was for me. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because when I was in like it's elementary school, um,
Yeah.
luckily I think our generation is so blessed because we grew up in the like golden era of Disney Channel, I would say, of just like
Yeah.
TV in general. Childhood
Mm-hmm.
shows were so inspiring for me, and I found myself in like certain or in all different types of genres, and they resonated with me. And just from like the top of my head, like That's So Raven, fucking like
Yeah.
Hannah Montana, even
Mm-hmm.
Cheetah Girls was one of them. Like
Yes. Cheetah Girls.
I can't even explain how many times me and my friends in elementary school would be at recess pretending we were Cheetah Girls, pretending we were Laker Girls. Like
I was always Adrian.
I was what's her name? Bubbles, what's her name? I forgot.
Oh
Anyways,
my God.
the one with the
I
hot
know.
sauce.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
was me.
uh-huh.
But yeah, so and I would memorize the lines because I would watch these shows so much. I would watch these
Mm-hmm.
episodes so much that I would memorize the lines and I would say the lines with the TV show. Like I was that kid. And when I was in middle school, one of my friends, she had told me, she's like, you should do acting because you make all these funny faces. And I had no idea. I didn't think about it like that. I was like, oh, maybe I should.
Hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I like pestered my parents to get me into any sort of like acting class or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered hearing on the radio, you know how they would do those random ads for like the trying to get kids and teenagers to go to like a casting thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I went to one with one of my elementary school friends, and
And this is in LA, right? Like you were
yeah.
raised in, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the Valley. I grew up in San Fernando Valley, but
Mm-hmm.
this casting was held like in like West Hollywood or something, and that was I think one of my first like the earliest recollections I have of actually being in the city.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, this is where I need to be. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is it. I hate the suburbs. Like, this is it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And mind you, I had to be no older than like 11, so that's
Yeah.
saying a lot. And I remember going, and my parents couldn't afford to put me in these classes because they were like
Mm-hmm.
at least $500, something wild. And my friend who went with me with her parents, they put her in those classes, and I was just like, okay, well, this sucks.
You're great.
It was just like, I'll one day maybe, and I was being really upset about it, I remember, but um eventually my time did come because like in high school I took theater classes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being the oldest kid in like a summer acting boot camp at in like
Mm-hmm.
Thousand Oaks, and everybody else was like the oldest age was like I was oldest. I was probably like 12 or 13, and everybody else was like 8 or 9. So that was,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, this is wow. Um, and then I remember like once I got to high school and I was in theater class, I didn't take it that seriously because nobody else did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really until like junior year that like the biggest role that I got was for a kids play that our school put on for like the elementary schools in the area, and they would come
Mm-hmm.
watch the juniors and the seniors in their theater class do this play for them during the day, and
Mm-hmm.
that was it. And even after and when I was in senior year, didn't get didn't get anything that I auditioned for. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is for me. I was like, I don't know if this is it. Like, because I was also in, I was in dance classes at school too. I'm so
Mm.
grateful considering my dad made sure my sister and I went to the most suburban of high schools. There weren't very many black kids there. I'm not gonna lie. So there was a bit of an identity crisis. But
Yeah.
other than that, just the fact that I had access to all these extracurricular activities that I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
elsewhere. Um, so just the fact that I was able to take like a photo class, and the fact that I was able
Right.
to,
Because they give those options to the white kids.
yeah, and luckily I was able to take advantage of that and hopefully be able to like share whatever knowledge that I picked up there.
Yeah.
And I hated PE and physical education in any capacity, so I did dance instead, and
Mm-hmm.
you only needed to take some sort of PE for 2 years, and I ended up doing dance for all four. So
Mm-hmm.
I did dance and theater for all four, did photo for like 2 years, and um, because I just didn't really want to learn anything else.
Did you
Yeah.
have like, was there a front runner in your creative world as far as like, oh, my favorite is acting or my favorite is photography? Or was it kind of like you were still trying to find which one you liked the best?
I think at the time there was moments when each one favored out of the others. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a moment where I was just so enveloped in dancing because I ended up joining dance team at one point, but that didn't work out due to whatever teenage angst issues that I had. But yeah,
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
did dance team at one point, and then at one point theater was at the forefront. But there was always something where I was comparing myself to other people in the class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what really deterred me from progressing. Because there's always somebody better. There was always,
Yeah.
always, and still
Yeah.
to this day.
Of
So,
course.
um, it basically wasn't until senior year when the time came to. It was either what was it? When do you start applying for college? Is that senior
Like
year?
junior
Yeah.
year,
Senior
like
year.
junior, senior
Yeah.
year.
So whenever I started applying for college, I knew I didn't want to go to a normal university only because I just did not want to take my SATs.
Yeah.
That just wasn't an option for me. I'm like, I'm okay, thanks.
Yeah. Pass.
And yeah,
They
I had no
suck.
idea
Yeah.
what I wanted to major in anyway. I knew that if I did want
Mm.
to major in anything, it would have been creative. And I'm like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know if having a degree in something creative is really worth it if it's necessary.
Right.
So instead, I did a little bit of research and found two acting schools in LA. I found American Musical and Dramatic Academy at
Mm-hmm.
AMDA, and then I
Mm-hmm.
AMDA.
found American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw AMDA's page, I think they only had about like hey,
It happens.
I think that they only had about like two two alumni who I'd recognized. One was somebody from Modern Family, and the other person was Jason
Mm-hmm.
Derulo. So I was like, we gonna be good. I can get in here. Right. So
Jason Derulo? I had no idea
yes.
you went to AMDA.
No, I
Jason
didn't. I didn't.
Derulo.
I auditioned. I got in. I paid the deposit, right? And then I, for whatever reason, something instinctually said, just try to just audition for ADA, because their website was so intimidating to me. All of their alumni was just I was like, I don't know if I could do this. This is a lot
Yeah.
to, a lot of pressure I'm putting on myself. So I did it. I got my audition. Whatever. The woman who later became my voice and speech instructor, she had auditioned me, and she's like, you're a pro at auditioning. I'm like, hey, I had no idea.
Me?
Mind you, like throughout high school, I didn't think anything of myself when it came to that. I was just like, I'm interested in it. I like it. I want to say I'm good at it, but I haven't had any confirmation of that, and that's
Yeah.
throughout my entire high school experience. So that was really nice. And so I got in there. I retracted my application from AMDA, and I was like, I'm going to ADA. And then I started that 2-year conservatory journey in Hollywood.
Huh.
Yep.
Very interesting time.
Yeah, I was gonna do the conservatory route too, and then I didn't, and I went to a 4-year school that was entirely too expensive, and
The conservatories are still expensive, sis. You probably at least
no,
got a degree.
I know they are. I know, yeah. Because
Well,
there's
and, like-
AMDA in New York too. There's like a couple, but I want to ask you too, on the subject. Like, I wonder, this was kind of my experience, and I'm still like a white passing woman, but for you, like, were the shows that your school was putting on, were they mostly like written by white playwrights, white actors, and white characters? Because that was what happened to me a lot.
Yeah, there were, what was it? I want to say most of the things that I was in, there wasn't necessarily a specificity on it being a white character. Mind you, the way that they had all of the classes set up was you would be in a section of students. The first year they had you grouped up with students that are generally around the same age range as you. So regardless of the play, at least y'all all looked like you were supposed to be in
the same age. Yeah.
And they also tried to group people with like similar life experiences or whatever.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because one thing I didn't realize until I basically went there for orientation was that there was going to be people there from all different walks of life, right? So I was fresh out of high school. I know a lot of people that I was grouped with in my first year were fresh out of high school, but there were still people in like their 30s, 40s, and who had their whole, like, they had a whole life experience prior, and they're just like, I really want to pursue this, so I'm taking that leap and I'm doing it.
Yep.
And so, which
was
made
the student body was diverse?
Yeah.
Like racially as well?
Yeah. So that was nice. I think that they went out of their way to make sure, because we did have a nice handful of international students as well. Which is how I met my boyfriend, because yeah. So we had I met so many people from all over the world just being there. So I'm extremely grateful, but they definitely made the curriculum so that you had to fit into a very American market. Like, they talked you out of whatever accent that you have. Like, they trained you out of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my Valley girl, like, hi, hey, whatever. My Valley girl was like, hi, I'm Ariel. I sound like a voice machine. Like, that kind of vibe.
Oh my gosh.
They wanted everybody to sound like that, at least first year. And so I remember most of the roles that I had gotten for like exam plays or whatever scene work they weren't, they were white. Like, that's just the way it is. That was whatever. And it wasn't really until my grad play second year. I don't know who picked the plays that year. I know our student advisor person or whatever, she's Black, so I think she probably went out of her way to see who like how many students they had of one ethnic group, and they could put them into more diverse play or whatever. So I remember my grad play was specifically centered around Black Americans,
Oh,
and
okay.
so I was extremely grateful for that. And yeah, that specifically was, but I don't recall other ones being the case.
Yeah.
At what point did you start pursuing modeling?
So it wasn't until after after second year, I had the option to join the theater company for the school, and
Mm-hmm.
that meant auditioning for it. Mind you, second year you had to get asked back,
Mm-hmm.
so that's how they made that extremely prestigious. And
Mm-hmm.
for the theater company, when I auditioned with the intention of let's add a little more diversity in the mix,
Mm-hmm.
because the previous theater companies that I had seen weren't very diverse. There may be like 2 or 3 Black people in them, and I
Yeah.
was very lucky that the year that I was there, or the couple years that I was there, people in my year, there was significant amount of Black and brown students. So a lot of us, I know some people, at least the international ones, had the intention of auditioning because they wanted their visa to be extended,
Mm-hmm.
which is fair enough because it's
Yeah.
not easy to be able to stay in the
Yeah.
States. Um, and my goal was I wanted to make it more diverse, and I also wanted more experience within the acting realm. So I I got in, did the theater company, did that for the
Mm.
year, did whatever plays throughout the year, and then once that was done, I had my a completely different SOS moment where I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Right.
so used to being in class, or being in class for basically 8 hours a
Yeah.
day, also working 2
Structure.
jobs. Like, I was doing a lot, and that went from constantly doing something to almost nothing, like just going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was very lost in the sense of, okay, well, they gave me some tools that I can work with. They didn't really, you know, give us the reality of
Pro-
the situation, which is, hey, it's gonna be damn near impossible to book something. If you're lucky, you're gonna book something right off the bat, but for the most
but like
part,
you're looking at like a decade or more of trying.
yeah, like the reality of that was not set in for me, and it was starting to settle in after theater company was done, because they had a showcase at the end of it. I had maybe like 2 agencies that were interested in me, and I reached out to them, didn't hear anything back. So I was
Mm-hmm.
discouraged, like everything that when it came to me reaching out to agencies,
Mm-hmm.
it just I didn't have the confidence in like selling myself,
Yeah.
and as far as like the admin part of it, when it came to like constantly writing emails, sending postcards, updating your headshots all the time, I'm like, I can't afford
Yeah.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
also
insane.
constantly submitting yourself online and doing like backstage and paying for your subscription to backstage and like casting and access access. There's
Mm-hmm.
just so many of these things
Yeah.
involved, and I was also thinking like half of these half of these projects that do want to book me aren't paid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just copy, credit, meal, and go about your day. But I'm like, copy,
Yep.
credit, and meal ain't paying my rent. Like, I don't live
Yeah.
at home,
Yep.
So, um, that's when I thought, let me try to get into modeling. I had a friend, one of my good friends, uh, previously, she had done modeling, and so I was thinking, okay, maybe I can just try. I'm not sure exactly how.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was on like Model Mayhem or whatever, and then I started
Mm-hmm.
going on like Facebook groups. Model Mayhem's mad sketchy, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've done some model mayhem.
Yeah. I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started with that, and I was just thinking like this is probably an easier way for me to just get my foot in the door, because
What year was this? I'm just curious in relation to social media.
sorry,
What year was this? Because I'm thinking about like, was Instagram a thing yet? Or was
it
this like,
was it was, but I wasn't really using it for that. It was like when
Yeah.
yeah.
everybody was just using Instagram filters and like doing that little
Was it
square. It was
so like
before they
The frames and
2012?
shit.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
it was
2012?
before they like let you do a full frame of something. Like everything was
Yeah.
cropped, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no one was really using it for that. But yeah, I'm just thinking about those pictures now. But yeah,
I
so
know.
they goodness, it was probably like 2013,
Mm-hmm.
2014. No,
Yeah.
that's a lie. That's a lie. It was after that. 2015,
Mm-hmm.
2015, I think. And so I started doing just random shoots with people,
Yeah.
and it was a nice way for me to understand that how I see myself isn't how other people see me,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and it made me more comfortable, or helped me learn how to be more comfortable in my own body, because
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, because that was something that I was struggling with when I was in acting school, because I
Yeah.
was always, it was easy for me to just stand there and talk, but when it came to
Mm-hmm.
like gesturing or like using my full body while
Mm-hmm.
acting, I didn't really understand. Like there was just a disconnect. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
modeling definitely taught me how to connect the two, and
Mm-hmm.
it
That's
took some
interesting.
time, because there were plenty of shoots even to this day where then at the time I thought, oh, this is shit. Like I wasted my
Mm-hmm.
time. I look horrible. I can't use this. But now looking back and I look at those photos, I'm like, I look fine. Like I look good.
Yeah.
Why? What?
Perspective
And
is
the
such
Mm-hmm.
a
photographer thought it
crazy.
was dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that so that definitely helped. And it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
When did people start using Instagram for like marketing purposes? Well, like
I
20.
feel like it was like, I mean, I think it started
16?
around like 14, 15, 16, but like
15, yeah.
really the last, because I do remember like a big burst for me when I discovered, like I was really discovering brands and stuff on Insta, like in the jewelry brand that I work for now. I remember 2014, I had like this burst of discovery of creatives on Instagram who I was all of a sudden finding. And that makes me think that that's kind of around the time where people were using as promotion. Because all of a sudden I started discovering these people and these brands and
Mm,
artists that I hadn't, and that was like 2014. So I want to say it was around then when it started to become like taken seriously for a business use.
yeah, yeah, because yeah, that would make sense. Because even then, at that time, I was just posting my modeling stuff. Didn't really know what to do with it, but it was
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And we were all like using, I mean, Instagram, like when it started, it was my first year that I moved out to LA that Instagram even started. And I remember it being like, all it was like a photo diary of everybody's day. It was like, which some people still use it as, but it was literally like, look at this funny leaf I found on the sidewalk. Look at my coffee. Look at
Yeah.
my, and like it wasn't at all, it wasn't like quality images. Like you said, it was those shitty like 3 Instagram filters you could use, and they were blurry and grainy, and the iPhones weren't even good quality, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was just like a whole.
Just that Valencia filter over and over
Yeah.
again, you know?
I'm interested in the like your progression. So maybe I'm skipping things so we can go back, but I'm really curious because of the climate, the social climate today, especially when it comes to race and brands scrambling now to prove that they're like on board or that they are diverse, or because you now have accumulated such a following on Instagram and you've done so many shoots and you have like brand collaborations, have you noticed since George Floyd, just in the last month or so, brands that maybe you did a shoot with like a couple years ago, now all of a sudden pushing you to the front of like, look at, we shot a Black model once.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I did notice at least one. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really paying attention because there's just that
Yeah.
whole this whole time has been so heavy, right? But
Yeah.
I had
Mm-hmm.
noticed at least one where I didn't even really pay attention to their posts after we had shot, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I remembered they had tagged me, and I did this shoot maybe in like 2017, like
Yeah.
2016, and it was me, one white girl, and then another mixed race light girl, and
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was funny because like as you scroll down, it's just all looks the same, but then there's just that one shoot that we did however
Yep.
many years ago. So I thought it was funny, and I'm like, I just try to give people the benefit of the doubt that it's not intentional.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's nice that I'm guess I don't because I just don't want to be the face of like I don't want to be the token black girl. I don't, and I
Yeah.
also know I'm like I'm light. I'm
Mm-hmm.
Right.
there's so many shades of brown, and there's so many,
Right.
and that's not to underplay whatever attributes that I have, but
Mm-hmm.
especially in this time, if you found that I'm the only person
Right.
that's deemed like worthy enough, or the only person that you found I think that's just a cop out, honestly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I have.
Is it something that you focused on, like when you started like utilizing social media? Were you like, I might be, or maybe it's the people that you surround yourself. Like, did you surround yourself with like diverse content creators? Like when you would make projects yourself or have shoots, or like, were you conscious of what you were putting out and making sure that you weren't just the token like black girl?
Yeah, I know at one point, so when I was in London, it definitely, I, regardless of how elitist the UK's marketing and branding, whatever, trying to actually be a part of the creative industry, it might be,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a little more diverse in that sense.
Mm.
So I know I definitely worked with more of a diverse crew of people, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term,
Yeah.
than I did at least in LA. And I know when it came to the types of work that I was trying to get, like just considering like if I wanted to be booked by an agent, or if I wanted an agency to want me to be part of their roster, they have like a list of their photographers that they wanted you to shoot with, right? Most of which are
Mm-hmm.
white, and
Mm.
most of which who have mainly shot white girls. And it wasn't
Yeah.
like it was something like, I would notice it, I would recognize it, and
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until like a few years later that I started just deterring myself from that. I know I definitely made a point to make sure I wasn't working with a makeup artist who hadn't worked with black people
I
before.
was just gonna ask about makeup and hair,
Oh
like on
yeah.
set.
Yeah, makeup artist specifically, I made it a thing to, because I'm like, I don't want to be the guinea pig. I've
Yeah.
No.
been the guinea pig, and knowing that I'm a medium tone of brown,
Mm-hmm.
like
Right.
the fact that if you can't get my shade right, like
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
problem. And
Because did you have shoots where you had to bring your own makeup, like your own
yeah, I've
foundation?
had
Because that,
plenty,
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
so many shoots, more shoots than I can even count, more than not. And I it hasn't been an issue as of like the last year. Luckily, there's been more than enough brands, especially since Fenty came on the scene, more than enough
Mm-hmm.
brands
Mm-hmm.
that have made that statement, that are like, okay, we're gonna have a variety of shades, so you
Which
don't
is
have an
like
excuse.
the most logical no-brainer thing for makeup in general, one would think. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not surprised because this is white supremacy that we live in, but like
Yeah.
it's like this makeup. It's for your face. The point is to match your skin tone. So what makeup brand wouldn't consider skin tones?
Because they don't want to spend the money and on all these shades when, especially if most of their campaign is full of one shade or
Of
just a
yeah,
course.
couple of the shades. It's like not
yeah,
even worth it for them
exactly.
until it
And
it's convenient.
well, I was listening to this podcast, a beauty podcast recently, and they had a black makeup artist on, and she was talking about how in consumerism in the beauty industry, black women are like the number one consumers, and she's like, a big part of that, although a big part of that is because for years, black women have had to buy like literally at least two foundations to mix into to get their actual color. So they're actually having to purchase double what white women have to purchase just to mix their own color. So it's so messed up. Like, I just think like I think it's really important that like you're on here to talk about it too, and that people really understand it, like things that normally wouldn't cross people's mind. Like, oh, you did a photo shoot. That's great. Like, no, it's not normal for a model. Well, it is for black models, but for a white model to have to come and think about like, are they going to have should I bring my own makeup, or like, that's not supposed to be a thing.
Yeah, and it's happened multiple times, and so that's where I consciously made the decision, or I would go out of my way to bring my own shade until I felt confident enough that society has, made that change where
Yeah.
I know that I can go to a shoot and knowing that I'm gonna get my makeup done and knowing that I don't need to bring my own foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, as far as like photographers and like or stylists and things like that, to be completely honest, I was just trying to get like portfolio things done. I wasn't necessarily
Yeah.
thinking about that. And
Right.
it was also one of those things where if I did see somebody who had shot mainly white girls, to be honest, I had to deal with my own idea or my own like identity crisis because like growing up I wanted to be white, like just
Mm-hmm.
and that's just that on that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with so
Yeah.
many white people and I I was made fun of for my hair. I was made fun of for X, Y, and Z, or I was told that, oh, you're gonna get so dark, or this, that. When I'm light as fuck. Like there's just so
Yeah.
many. So because of this, and I was straightening my hair so much,
Mm-hmm.
I killed it at one point. So
Wow.
I associated so many beauty standards with whiteness,
Yeah.
and I kind of disassociated whatever my complexion, what my natural hair is, things like that with beauty.
Yeah.
And so I would see like boudoir shoots or lifestyle beach shoots and like that long flowy silky
Yep.
hair, and I'm like, I want to look like
Mhm.
that. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I saw somebody shooting mainly white girls and they looked like that, I didn't even care because I'm like, that's the vibe that I'm going
That's what I
for,
want to. Yeah,
you
I
know?
see.
you
Mhm.
know? So
Interesting.
like, it wasn't until I want to say like the last couple years where I've really stepped into my own, especially when I moved to London and I didn't realize
Mm-hmm.
how different I looked because I was going out of my way to make sure that my hair is in braids, but I was doing like different colored braids. I wasn't like,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
because there is like a high African population in the UK. So a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
black people that are there are still very in tune with their culture back home.
Yeah.
And because I didn't have that, I'm just gonna express myself however I feel like it. I was doing things a little differently, and I'm like queen of DIY because I just don't feel like paying for anything. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, so I would do my own hair, and I would do it in like a funky, like multiple colors in ways that people weren't used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was out there, I got a little more recognition from like student creatives because I was booking a lot of
Mm.
stuff for student projects, and they saw potential in me that industry creatives didn't. So
Yeah.
because of them and they're wanting to uplift me in whatever capacity, they saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that helped me come into my own and just kind of accept that and work with it.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because um the modeling industry specifically, like entertainment, of course, but modeling um can go so many different directions in terms of what it does to your self-perception. Of course, like we all know what the negative side is, but you were able, it seems, to harness it in a sense that it actually liberated you because it allowed you to get out of, I don't want to speak for you, so tell me if this is correct. Like if it allowed you to kind of get out of your head about your own self-perception and see yourself in a different light, as opposed to like restricting you even more into what they want you to look like, what the industry as a whole wants you to look like. Because you said you kind of started to find yourself and your voice in it. And I don't know, I'm curious, like when your Instagram, going back to your actual Instagram account and your captions that you post and the community that you make an effort to build there is like so inclusive. And what has your what's the word? I don't even know, but like your plan of action been for your Instagram account, like in recent years? Like what is your goal for that? How do you strategize what you're posting and what you're saying?
Yeah, so I made a conscious decision, especially after moving to London and not wanting basically anything to do with LA, just because I had experienced so much superficiality within the industry.
Yeah.
Um, and because I was so disheartened by a lot of like the industry encounters I'd had in the UK as well. I just got tired of pretending like everything was fine online. I got
Mhm.
tired of
Yeah.
everybody like going scrolling through, seeing all of these influencers, seeing even people that I know posting things like everything is just so happy go lucky all the time. I'm like, this shit is fake.
Yeah.
Like we
Mhm.
need to come on, like let's let's be real here. And
Mm-hmm.
I had experience like I had my own like teenage years of doing too much on the internet and like telling the
Mm-hmm.
world my business. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I know that stigma people have when people have their like cries for help online.
Right.
People will either frown upon it or they'll like rush to your aid, and it might not even be that serious. You just feel like being dramatic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's either like one or the other. So
Right.
Mm-hmm.
um I knew that there had to be a middle ground. Um I knew that I wanted to find a way for people to connect with me and whatever experiences that I'm having, just because I wanted people to understand that they're not alone in
Mm-hmm.
whatever obstacles that they're facing.
Yeah.
Especially considering at the time all of social media was very aesthetic based, and it still
Yeah.
is. And I think that it's become a little more, especially as of late, it's become
Yeah.
more realistic and much more down to earth.
And
But
yeah.
definitely at the time, it was very superficial, and all it made me think of was all of the shit that I had left in LA. But I knew that I
Mm-hmm.
had to use social media in order, in order to get somewhere creatively.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that that was a tool that otherwise, if I didn't use it, it would be extremely difficult for me to get my foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
So, and something that I had told myself, I want to say after graduating and after doing theater company, I told myself that I wanted to be a part of like changing the industry I wanted to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, I still to this day stand by that, considering it's so difficult for anybody to be seen, to be heard, for their stories to be told.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for people to access these tools that,
Mm-hmm.
that aren't, that, it's nothing that I think you should be having to pay $30,000 a year to know,
Mm-hmm.
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 because some of these things YouTube was a great tool for me at one point because I was
Mm.
learning how to do so many things for myself just based on the tutorials that I was watching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I still think that. So I don't know. I just consciously made the decision like I need to change my platform not only for other people but for myself because I
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
don't want to post things that I don't feel connected to. I don't want to post something and pretend like everything's cute when it's not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I people need to know that yeah, I this might be a really nice photo, but this shoot wasn't that great. Like
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
have that
That's
great of a time. Like this was
yeah.
difficult. It was fucking cold. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to stop and go blow my nose every 2 seconds. Like something was going
Mm-hmm.
on, and yeah, because I thought that that element was definitely missing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you notice like a shift in like your, I guess, followers when you decided to become more real? At least, to portray a realness, to be vulnerable. Did you ever notice like a shift, even with your like friends that would post things? Like, do you think it influenced
yeah,
them?
I noticed that people I'd gotten bit of like outreach from people who had recognized um my vulnerability, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um I'd even have like a couple people reach out to me and say like how do you do this? Like how do I make my Instagram more personable? And I'm just like just be
Mm-hmm.
authentic, be yourself. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, you're going to attract the people who are meant to be attracted to you,
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
your authenticity radiates. And especially when we're so caught up in the superficiality of social media, when people are so easily just like, let me scroll and like, scroll and like, scroll and like,
Mm-hmm.
just keep pushing. Um, and if you take a second and like actually you notice somebody has a decent sized caption, right? And it's not more than it's not the basic like, oh, I don't know, what are those stupid ass lines people were putting? Like,
I did a
M- m-
thing.
might
right.
delete later.
Yeah, like Netflix and chill or something, just like
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
whatever quick one-liners.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just wanted to make sure it had substance. So I definitely noticed that more people were resonating with what I had to say after the fact, and I think that they started shifting their perspectives on how they were going to utilize their social media.
Yeah.
Um, so it wasn't necessarily curated, you know?
Yeah. Were
God,
you getting, do you get a lot of, like currently in your normal day, DMs or messages from people responding to like the content of your captions, like what you say you're going through and stuff?
Yeah, I don't get like tons of responses. And I don't really care.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm just
Um,
curious because like the community that you end up building, it's like they know you more than you know them. So I'm like,
yeah,
how much do they reach out to you?
yeah. I I don't get tons of responses, but I am grateful for the ones that do reach out. I've had quite a few people who I guess they stumbled upon my page somehow and they're like, "Oh, like I love whatever energy you're bringing or whatever something
Mm-hmm.
about you." There's literally the line is usually there's something about you. And I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
That's
Like,
cute.
okay. Whatever that means, I guess. Um yeah, and I don't necessarily do it for the response. It's,
Yeah.
Right.
it's great to get confirmation and validation in that, but I guess because me posting from an authentic place is a little more cathartic for me than anything. So if people
Yeah.
Right.
do get something out of it, I'm so grateful and I'm glad that that's the case. Um,
It's like a
but
bonus.
yeah, it's definitely a bonus. So, and that's the point also.
And even since you've like made that shift and like you you express what you do and it's so beautiful and funny too. Like do you
Mm-hmm.
ever still get in your head with social media? Like does it still kind of get to you and you're just like fuck it all?
Yeah. So there are moments. It wasn't not necessarily as of late, just because I took I took the leap and I was like, fuck it, I want to make a Finsta. So I made my Finsta so I could just post whatever the hell I wanted to
Mhm.
whenever I wanted
Yeah.
to without worrying about curating, without worrying about
Yeah.
brand
Yeah.
partnerships, without making sure that it was aesthetically pleasing. Like,
Right, right.
you'll see, obviously, in my stories, I'll have moments where I'm just like being me and you can see me fresh face, no makeup, like just doing really goofy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Those are
and,
my favorite.
I know. I love your Finsta. Sorry,
and
you're not
now,
exclusive. You're not on the list. If you don't know her Finsta.
but even, even now, because I had to take a break for a minute, like, I just couldn't be bothered, honestly. Because there's been so many things that have happened recently
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
that I just haven't had the heart to like shoot like I have before. I was
Yeah.
Mhm.
making a lot of my own content too because I realized a lot of the people that I was collaborating with were booking paid gigs. So I was like, I'm not even gonna, y'all do
Mm-hmm.
you. Like, I'm proud of
Mhm.
you. I've had multiple people um who have gotten me booked for jobs. So I'm very appreciative of them, but I took the time to do it for myself because um I didn't want to have to necessarily rely on
Yep.
anybody for
It's
that,
so much,
especially if it was just going to be for Instagram.
yeah,
Mhm.
and it's empowering. Like the more you can do for yourself, the more self-reliant you are, then your collaborations become for fun and not out of necessity.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. And do
I,
you think like what do you think, and this is might be like not super off topic, but like doing shoots and projects and stuff pre-pandemic, like what do you think like the future is now? Because last week we talked to one of my best friends, Al. He works in the industry and like he works for a really popular American brand right now. He's a content producer and so he does like everything with the shoots and like he's nervous as fuck, like because they're starting to do more and more shoots and more campaigns right now. Like do you as a model have like, are you wary of like what it's going to look like once it gets bigger and once people start opening up again as far
Yeah.
as doing
I
shoots?
mean, I know I'm not necessarily rushing out to do shoots because even then,
Yeah.
like at this point, just personally speaking, um, I haven't had so much like I haven't been extremely like motivated or inspired to like go
mm-hmm.
out and shoot all the time like I was
Mhm.
at
Yeah.
one point. Um And I've definitely seen like a few friends of mine who have started back up again and gotten into the swing of things again. And I know that also has a lot to do with just their livelihood and them needing to work, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I completely understand that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think as far as like the professional industry of it all, like when it comes to large brands and things working together, I there hasn't been very much care for how models have been treated in the past.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's going to change, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Especially from a model's perspective, a lot of it is like you're just a mannequin to these people. You're here
Yeah.
to do your job and that's it, and to create a vision for everybody else, and then keep it pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can, especially in this very capitalistic society, I would not be surprised if they just figure out a way to get around all the things to make their money.
I mean, that's what
Yep.
they're doing. I mean, besides, I feel like he's done some, and he showed me pictures like Zoom shoots. Well, they'll send the models like fisheye lens, and then like it'll attach to their cameras, either on their
Mm-hmm.
phone or their computer, and that's how they do the shoots. But even with that, there are like opening back up, and I'm like, as an actor who's auditioning for things that they're like, oh yeah, it's like August start date for like, in-person shooting. I'm like, what do they expect us to do? There's
Right.
only so much you can do in service industry and in the arts and in entertainment. Like we're gonna have to, unless they can pay for us to be quarantined, I don't see a healthy way we can have a good job again.
Yeah, honestly, I really don't know. I'm just trying to let go of whatever control I'm trying to have on that. I'm just,
Yeah.
one thing that I always recommend to every creative, especially creatives that are starting in the industry, is to find a way to work on a passion project that they have, you
Yeah.
know? And whether it's in their starting phase or if they're trying to shoot and just we're creative, we can get creative with it. We can find ways to get around it. And especially considering this is global and it affects everybody, it's like if your entire shoot has to be via webcam or some extra, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's there's ways to go around it without endangering other people, but
Hmm.
Yeah.
it just takes a little bit of innovation. I think
What
that
are
possible.
what are for you creatively? Because we mentioned at the beginning too, or in the intro, but you also draw and paint, and you're an artist. I mean, you're an artist in so many realms, and in your dream world, where do you like career wise? What are some of your goals for the future? Whether that's like 2021 or like in 10 years, like what kind of stuff do you have that you're like, I really want to do this? It's my list of
Yeah, I
goals.
have like a handful of like passion projects that I'd like to get accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
I have like a rom-com thing that I want to do, that I want to write, that
Yes.
I want to get done. There's so many things that I can just pull from life experiences that
Yeah.
I think people should talk about or
Mm-hmm.
that people would resonate with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's that. There's like a art. I honestly there's so many things that I want to do. I can't even
Mm-hmm.
really articulate
Yeah.
exactly what it is because I would love to just make a living doing every facet of art that intrigues
Yep.
me, you know,
Yeah.
and being able to kind of interweave all of the elements of
Yeah.
each into maybe one big project at some point. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's just so many things that I'm interested in as far as creative endeavors are concerned that I
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
feel like the possibilities are endless. All it takes
Yeah.
is like me disciplining myself enough to really sit down and make it happen, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Do you see like what do you see as far as like the social media aspect of it? Because I already see it changing. We've talked about it a little bit, but for you and how you kind of, in the world you're creating and in the community you're creating, like are you like how are you going to be conscious of like the brands you're going to be partnering with and like yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, especially moving forward, and even as of recently, I've taken into account the like brands who have just posted something because they know that this is like that there's eyes on them now, you know? And I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed a handful of brands that previously made absolutely no comment, you know, and then now that they see a shift in you know, the conversation, and they see more Black
Yep.
bodies being at the forefront of um campaigns, they're like,
Yeah.
we aren't gonna make any money if we don't use Black people, so let's make sure that we use
Mm-hmm.
Black people now. But I think
Mm-hmm.
the conversation that needs to be had is under them understanding that this is not a phase.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, this is a change that's gonna maintain. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that this representation is it's integral. It is necessary.
Yeah.
So I think as long as these brands are willing to change along with the way society's moving, then
Mm-hmm.
by all means, yes. But if you
Yeah.
think that this is just going to be a quick photo op, like,
Right.
Yeah.
and then keep it pushing like you have been before, your company is most likely not going to
Yeah, you're
come
gonna
back.
fall behind. I mean, and like most things, like the initial motivation for brands to do that in the society we live in, of course, is money. Like you said, like, oh shit, we're being called out on like big platforms now. Brands are being examined. We're not gonna make money if we don't use Black people in our campaigns. Even though that is the place where a lot of them are starting from, which sucks, but it's better than continuing like we did. Hopefully, it does transition into, like you're saying, actually the reasons they start to do that are because they understand that it is necessary and it is important. And I think, but what I think a lot of that has to do with the corporate structure of these brands changing, because they, like we talked about in our episode with Al in the fashion industry, like if even if the face of a brand in their campaigns or even in their stores is diverse, the corporate structure is still a bunch of white people sitting up there.
Right.
And so I feel like that's what's going to need to eventually, for it to sink into a brand about why it's important and not just, oh, because of the bottom line and the money. I believe that's going to have to shift.
I agree entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what kind of advice would you give to girls and like specifically like women of color that like, you know, don't see themselves represented and like could be, like you said, like could be going through an identity crisis themselves? Like, how do you, like, what kind of advice would you give them to either, you know, if they're creative and want to express themselves, or just to feel good in their bodies
Yeah.
in
So
the world?
as far as being a creative and wanting to express yourself, I say just do it in the ways that you know how, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Also, don't be afraid to sort of seek out other creatives who look like you, or
Mm-hmm.
um like researching hashtags, like try to utilize the
Yeah.
tools that you do have available um in order to find other creatives who are like-minded and wanting to create more of a diverse um atmosphere, I guess.
Yeah.
And also don't be afraid to create for yourself either,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, like no one's going to be able to fully represent you in the way that you want to be other than you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's something that I keep trying to reiterate for myself. So,
Yeah.
because we're so multifaceted, there's so many layers. Regardless, you're much
Yeah.
more than just a stereotype that you see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful for the Black creatives who have created a platform like such as Issa Rae and Michaela Cole, you know,
Mm-hmm.
who have just done so, who created
My God, I
multi-dimensional
love them.
characters who happen to
Yeah.
be women of color, you know,
Yeah.
whose character isn't centered around their blackness. Their
Yeah.
Right.
character is centered around their life experiences.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so important. And so, especially if you're trying to find a way to be more comfortable in your body and who you are as a person, I think it's very important to seek out those people who you feel represent you in some way and resonate with
Yeah.
you in some way, so you can learn to love yourself a little bit more, just because it always
Mm-hmm.
helps knowing that you're not the only one there, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And like, I think I really do believe that the more you look at something, even if you're not even consciously thinking about it, the more beauty you find in it. And so it's like, really, like, if, you know, probably a lot of us when we feel the worst about our bodies, or I guess just, I don't know, maybe just women, but like as women, like we all are, the times where you feel the worst about your body when you're looking at pictures, it's usually when you're looking at someone that doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
It's the truth. And it's not like, I mean, that's kind of weird because I'm also saying like surround yourself by people that don't look like you, which I mean as well. But I just mean like the comparison aspect, like you're saying, if your whole vision of beauty is something that doesn't resemble yourself at all, that's going to cause a lot of tension. And we all have dealt with that. And so then like women of color, it's like exponentially even more because my whole life, the world's been telling me that my skin is beautiful. Like, and I still have had plenty of issues growing up as a woman and feeling like shit, you know? So it's like, it just seems like an impossible mountain to climb sometimes. But I like what you're saying of like, surround yourself. It's an interesting mix because it's like surround yourself with people that you see yourself in and that make you feel good about these parts of yourself, and also expand your horizons and surround yourself with people whose experiences are different from yours, because that also allows you to step outside of yourself and be like, okay, it's not all about, I can get out of my head because I find beauty in this too.
But it also helps when there's someone that is being fucking real. You know, it's not just like,
Exactly.
you know, whatever sort of hot pick, you know, it's like there's substance, and that helps because there's connection immediately. Before we get to the SOS moment, like I just wonder with your experience and everything, like, are you hopeful for like how social media is changing, how the modeling industry is changing now that they're, you know, more vocal about needing representation?
Yes, I am. I definitely see more of like a Black Renaissance happening. Like there's definitely gonna be more representation. I always have like this vision in my mind, like, you know, when you're watching TV, you see these commercial ads for like very luxurious travel locations or whatever, and it's always some like very skinny white girls with like their
Yep.
like cocktails and shit, and I'm just thinking of like, in my mind I always picture it, but with like just all of these hues of melanin, right? Just all of these different ranges. And that's not to say that there aren't obviously very beautiful white girls, because there are clearly. Like,
But we already know what they look like.
yeah. But I think it's just so beautiful to see yourself depicted in ways that you hadn't before. It kind of gives you a new sense of inspiration, and especially because there are so many talented women of color. There's so many talented people of color who are creative, who are within so many different realms of the industry, not even just being like the faces of something, but also like directors of photography, because they know the importance of making sure like certain, you know, frames are set up a certain way, or like that lighting techs even who understand the importance of how lighting can really transform an image, you know, things of that, editors,
And
writers.
photographers, if there's like a dark skinned girl next to a super white girl, photographers knowing how to balance that out so that like
You're right,
someone's
exactly.
not blown out or hidden in the shadows. It's like, I mean, which seems like a basic skill, but like you're saying, it's not pervasive in the industry yet. So
No, and
it's gonna
I
have to
think that
be.
it will be soon, and I think that it will be more inclusive in that way, because there's but that's not to say that that like white people can't be involved in these projects or things like that. It's just making sure that everyone's seen in a light that's, for lack of a better term, but in seen in a light that uplifts everyone as a whole, you know, that doesn't, you know, have to, like you said, like have the white girls lit well in this scene with a dark person, but the dark person's now literally in the fucking dark. Like you can't, it's not the same. It's just being able to, yeah.
It's
I don't
getting
know.
makeup artists and hairstylists
All
that have
all of it.
experience. Yeah.
All
Just
of
like
it.
really just honoring the beauty that's in everybody and not trying to make everybody get as close as they can to one ideal.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's like the perfect way of saying it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's how the industry is going to shift. I think if companies, brands aren't about that for whatever reason, for whatever political reason, they're just going to be left in the dust because of
Yep.
it. You know, it's like jump on the wave now or forever hold your peace. So
Yeah. I mean, like, there's so
True.
many brands being called out right now, and like, you know, like Anna Wintour, like Vogue is just, yeah. So, well, we would love to know your SOS moment before we let you go.
yeah. So my SOS moment was, at least when it comes to creative industry things,
Yeah,
one of my SOS moments, there's
Yeah.
been many,
of course.
was definitely after I had moved to London because my boyfriend's from there and I wanted to see if that was an option for us, you know, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of get an idea of what the industry was like there. And I had realized that whilst I was there, considering I was very elated to leave LA just because I was tired of superficiality
Yeah.
and the lack of genuine creatives that I'd come across, um, I had learned rather quickly after going to these open calls for agencies and trying to sell my look,
Mm-hmm.
but constantly getting rejected and constantly getting rejected without an excuse or without a reason, just kind of knowing that I wasn't good enough and
Mm-hmm.
not, and considering I'm somebody who thrives off of criticism and I'm somebody who thrives off of just any sort of critique because I want to get better. I want to learn how I can get better.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I then understood that it was essentially up to me to create certain things for myself. It was up to me to make sure that I was, you know, represented in a way that I wanted to be, and also to make sure that I wasn't necessarily associating myself with agencies or brands that didn't see what I saw
Yeah.
in myself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the potential that I saw in myself, the potential that these students who I
Mm-hmm.
worked with saw in me. And yeah, so after that whole experience, I made more of an effort to find ways to uplift myself for the sake of my confidence, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and for the sake of other people who looked like me, for the sake of other people who
Yeah.
felt very discouraged about entering a creative industry just because they knew that either they were underrepresented or they didn't think that they were good enough.
So
So
when you were in the UK, when you were like testing the waters for the modeling industry out there, you felt it was like without being said, but it was very clear to you that it was just like, is your skin tone.
yeah, I noticed even though the UK is extremely diverse just in population, I noticed when it came to creatively, whether I wanted to be a part of acting or modeling, that especially modeling, you had to have a very European look. So
Mm.
even if you are like, even if they would have like a lot of dark Nigerian girls on their roster, all of these dark Nigerian girls still had a European sort of facial structure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I was then left to really compare myself, and I then understood how, I guess, I'm Black American I looked in comparison to these girls. There
Mm.
were very many mixed race girls who, although we were similar skin tones, facial structures weren't necessarily the same. Like I noticed my nostrils are a little bit wider, even though I don't have the widest set of nostrils. Like things like
Yeah.
little things that left me to compare a lot of physical attributes that I can't change or I'm not willing to change.
Yeah.
So that definitely put things into perspective for me, especially after my modeling agency in the States had dropped me after a year and
Mm-hmm.
after they had dropped the entire division that I was in at
Mm-hmm.
one point, just because they didn't know how to market us, you know. And
Wow.
although that they had very like a whole roster filled with Abercrombie and Fitch looking girls.
Of course.
So
Right.
God.
Ugh.
So
I
at that
just-
time, like, what like getting your self-confidence back up again, like, how did you even like manage that?
Like, how
with
do you fight the demons in your head after that, where you're just like,
Yeah.
fuck the world? Like,
well, I mean, to be honest, while I was in London, I definitely had that was probably the worst year for my self-confidence, the worst year for my mental health. That's the same year I think I made the conscious effort to shift how I was utilizing social media, because it wasn't healthy for me. I didn't like pretending like I was fine.
yeah.
And I had to make this conscious decision because I knew that I had depression at one point. I knew prior to that I knew I had depression because I went to the doctor and they gave me like a little test to take after they were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And once I marked off, like, it was just like a real quick survey, like a little piece of paper that was like between 1 to 10, like, how do you feel today? And the doctor came back in and she was like, oh yeah, so if you get under a certain amount, that means you're depressed. So I don't want to prescribe you anything, which I didn't want to be prescribed anything either. She was just like, just try to get some sun, you know, try to do things that you enjoy, like, very whatever. And but I moved to England, I want to say like maybe 6 months to a year after that. And being in that environment where it is very gloomy all the time, where people are very depressing, just in tone and in nature. That's just the way that they are. They're very morose in their jokes. They're very dark in everything. So, and considering I grew up, born and raised in Southern California, it is a completely different environment. So I definitely had a really rough depression period, and I had to consciously tell myself, like, I just don't want to be sad anymore. I'm just tired of being sad. Like, it's just draining, you know? So I did some research. I was like, what are natural ways to like help with depression? I found out I found out about 5-HTP, which is, if you don't know, it's like a natural supplement that boosts the what's the word?
Endorphins?
Serotonin?
It's not. I don't know if it's endorphins. I forgot exactly what it's called. But there's a chemical in your brain that
boosts, isn't it serotonin?
Yes.
Oh, serotonin.
It boosts the serotonin levels in your brain, and it helps with like energy and sleeping or whatever. So I found some while I was out there. I started taking that regularly, and then that helps whatever it worked. So it helped come out of whatever funk that I was in, whatever just self-deprecating thoughts that I was having of like really not thinking that I was good enough. It inspired me to get into my artwork, because prior to me going there, I was doodling a lot, like at my previous job, because they weren't allowing us to do anything else. Like, I couldn't have my phone. They had a computer for us to use, but I couldn't use the computer for anything other than work. And they had like cameras set up to just stare at you the entire time. So, and I had a micromanager who would walk in ready for you to fuck up so they could write you up. And there was one day when I just picked up a piece of paper. I'm like sat at the desk and I'm just like, I'm just going to doodle, but because I have an 8-hour shift, let me just make it as intricate as possible. And just see where it goes from there. I'll just use like circles and random lines and just start scribbling shit. And, one day when my coworkers saw me and they saw what I made, they're like, wow, that's really good. I'm like, this is just a doodle. Like, it's not that deep. They're like, no, this is great, whatever. And I was just utilizing that as like a form of therapy for me, or like a way to ease my boredom, to make the time go by. So while I was in England, I definitely utilized art, like physical art, as a way to cope with depression, and as a means to use for therapy for me, because I didn't really know how to articulate what was going on. And it was easy for me to just kind of put all of my shit on a canvas or on a sketch pad or something, and then it just kind of grew from there. So um, definitely highly recommend 5-HTP for anybody with depressive thoughts, and especially if you're
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't want to do antidepressants with all the side effects. I
Mm-hmm.
completely stand by 5-HTP forever, forever will. It was even to the
Mhm.
point where my sister was like, "Who are you? Like, you're way too happy right now. Like, this is
Wow.
not the person that I know." And I realized at that point that I needed to tone down. I had to reduce the amount that I was taking because
Yeah.
I started to not feel like myself entirely. Not
Yeah.
in a bad way, but I'm like,
This is too much.
I'm like, I'm a little too happy-go-lucky right now. Let me just bring it
Yeah.
back down a bit. But yeah, that definitely aided, and as well as finding other creative outlets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
It's
that
like,
because it is like a good and wonderful story of just like utilizing, yeah, if you're not creative, like you could still find a way to express yourself and connect
mhm.
to help whatever fight you're fighting to yeah, better yourself. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so much for taking the time talking to us. Like, while you went to the bathroom really quick, I was just like, damn it, Molly, like I need to be better with my captions. I need to fucking connect. I need to be it's inspiring. You're inspiring.
Just try not to think about it. That's the thing. Like I kind of just go just because the thing is that a problem that I definitely had was like attempting to curate posts.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not good at scheduling posts out, especially when
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
comes to like writing a caption, because a lot of that stuff is literally how I'm feeling that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if I really don't feel like posting that day, I'm probably not gonna post. If I really don't feel like I have anything to say that day, then I'm most likely not gonna post anything.
Mhm.
Unless I'm just very excited about a shoot, then you'll
Yeah.
usually know that. I'll usually clarify that somewhere. I'll be like, I'm sorry, I don't really have anything to say. I'm just really excited about this.
Yeah.
But I, yeah, I highly recommend for anybody who wants to utilize their social media platforms as a means to be a little more authentic, or to have a little more of an authentic outreach, just to not put too much pressure on yourself, you
Just
know.
don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go with it, and just let the thoughts flow out as they do. Like, how are you,
Mhm.
just really check in with yourself, honestly. Check in with yourself.
Mm.
Ask yourself how you're feeling. Ask yourself, like, what is it that is really weighing on my mind heavily today? Um, because
Mhm.
you might think that it'll just resonate with you, but chances are there's more people
Yep.
who will take something from that than you think. So
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
I'm grateful
much.
that you took this much time out of your day too to talk to us, cuz A, I miss you like crazy, and B, this is a really important conversation for people to hear, for us to have. So, thank you.
thank you. Oh, I miss you guys.
I love
This was
you.
fun. I love you.
Thank you so much again to Ariel for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah.
I love her so much. Yeah, again, if you want to follow her, um, please follow her at Ari, ARIE dot Michelle, MICHELE. And her website is arielmichelle.com. Same spelling.
Yeah. It was really, I think it's so important to just like hear perspectives and stories from people that don't look like you, because
Exactly.
so many things that, like, even if they're your good friends, and how many people are like, oh, I have black friends, or I have what, it doesn't matter. Like, you have to have these conversations to learn stuff, because
Yeah.
I mean, you there's stuff I would never think about, even though like you and I think about these issues a lot. There's stuff I would never think about until I have a conversation like that with Ariel, where you're just like, wow, I didn't even think about that. That's the importance of like sharing these stories and experiences.
Yeah. And I think I said this in the intro too, but like we've been wanting to have and we want to have more conversations about everything, but like social media is such a force and
Mm-hmm.
such a way for us to have a voice and
Yeah.
and express ourselves. And yes, there's so many downsides to it. We can it can reinforce like antisocial
Yeah.
behavior, and it also, it's not super reflective of how you really are a lot of the time. You know, everyone's
Yeah,
just
it's the highlights.
yeah, it's like highlights, but at the same time, and especially now, we are changing in how we are expressing ourselves. You know, we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. We're trying to be as informed as possible, and that's a way to do it. So, I encourage you to follow her, and follow
Yeah.
more people of color, women of color, people, trans people, people, you know, differently abled people. You know, not just
Yeah, anyone that doesn't look like you, because
yeah.
you know what it's like to go through the world in your body and your skin and your size and shape and whatever. And it's not like you can't make friends that look like you, but honestly, when it comes to like what you're consuming online, it's like I my feed is like, and not in the last month, this is like years. My feed is like 80% Black women, like the creatives, the photographers, the designers. Like I just, it's beautiful to me. It's so their work is beautiful. And maybe we can share. I put up a list on my Instagram of like my favorite top feeds, Instagram feeds that are not their top aesthetic, because Instagram is an aesthetic platform. And so like anything visual, I have favorite like chefs, designers, florists, like photographers, and they've been my top favorite accounts for a long time. And it's not like a list of my top favorite Black accounts. It's like top favorite accounts. But maybe we could share something like that on our Instagram for SOS, because I know people don't really know where to begin sometimes. And if you want like to be inspired by art and creativity when you go to Instagram, we could give a little start to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to do that. I have some good ones to follow too.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So today our charity nonprofit is going to be Women of Color Network, Inc. So WOCN Inc. is a national grassroots initiative dedicated to eliminating violence against all women and their communities by centralizing the voices and promoting the leadership of women of color across the United States. WOCN Inc. leadership, staff, and advisors are made up of exclusively women of color, and in collaboration with their partners, have been able to reach out and support the inclusion of diverse constituencies in the anti-violence against women movement. Through those partnerships, WOCN Inc. has provided training in multifarious audiences, facilitated national dialogues, and built alliances across social justice movements. To learn more and donate, please visit WOCNinc.org.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that one. Guys, so don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the SOS Pod. Subscribe and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Google, more. YouTube, you can search SOS with Molly and Alyssa. And please leave reviews. Please rate. Really helps people discover us. Other people discover us on Apple Podcasts. So thanks for listening. And here's to turning meltdowns into magic.